Hello, 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 hello. Man, I'm so excited. Again, welcome to First Friday Finance. I'm your host, Dr. Marvin Scott. We started this in August, and we've really been working on a plan. We got a plan. There's a process to this, and I think we're really to the place where we're ready to look at our budget. We're ready to create our budget. So we're going to get ready to do that. So I'm just so excited, and I hope that you've been following along. And if you this is your first time tuning in, go back and look at some of the other First Friday Finance messages where we talked about really just pulling things together, monitoring your cash flow, looking at how you're spending your money, then taking some time to say, okay, out of the money that I've been spending, what can I do without? And if I can do without that for the next 30 days, we did without it to see if we can put that money aside and see if that money, see if we can build up some money. And then the next month, we said, you know what, we're still going to monitor our cash flow. We're still going to look at, hey, what can I do without? But then we said we're going to keep a journal to see how do you feel? Because it's amazing. Some people just feel like, man, I just got a habit. Because think about it. Bad habits are hard to break, and you do something enough, you create a habit. And once you create a habit, it's so hard to break. I can remember, and it's funny, I can remember, I'm old enough to remember when cell phones first came out. And I can remember when we had pagers. And so I was working for American Home Patient as well as working at Health South, and I had a pager. And so if they needed something, they would page me. And I can remember having to find a payphone, go to the payphone, and then make the phone call. For those of you who didn't probably never seen a payphone, right? Some people might have not have ever seen a payphone where you actually had to go and put a quarter in, and I can remember it was 50 cents, and then you call and you say, hey, what's going on or whatever. And then all of a sudden, I remember I got my first cell phone. But just to make a long story short, so I get this cell phone, and new cell phones were coming out. And I said, look, all I need is to make a phone call and receive a phone call. There was no such thing as a text message. It was just make a phone call, receive a phone call. And then next thing you know, guess what? I'm coaching Pop Warner football, and they would get heat advisories sometimes, or things would change. And so I would have to rush home to get on my computer to check my email to see if practice was canceled or not. So what happened? My phone wound up breaking, so I wound up getting another phone. I remember I had a BlackBerry, and with the BlackBerry, I can check my email from my phone. So now here it is. I was used to coming home, no problem, checking my email and being able to respond to my email from my phone. And all of a sudden, from my computer, all of a sudden now it's on my phone. And it got to the point where, man, I can't do without that. I got to have it. If the next phone I get, all I need to do is be able to make a phone call, receive phone calls, and check my emails, right? And then it went from that to now getting text messages and all these different things. Now you need a phone to search your web. So with so many different things that you can do without, you used to, but now you've gotten addicted to it. Say it's become a habit, and now you feel like you need it. So you have to go back and search your life and see, what things am I spending money on, that I don't really need. And we'll get into that because we'll talk about essential parts of your budget and non-essential. And if we'll be honest with ourselves, there are a lot of things that are non-essential that we have in our budget because we feel like we need it, right? So creating your budget, right? So what's the first thing that your budget begins? If you're going to create a budget, what's the first thing you think you need to look at? I'll give you a second to think about it, and some of you might send something in or whatever. But when you're creating a budget, what does it begin with? What's the first thing you look at, right? And I'll say it to you very simple, right? Remember, all budgets begins with your base income, right? Your base income, or what we would call your disposable income, right? You'll hear that term, disposable income. And don't get it twisted, right? It's different from discretionary income. Disposable income is really your take home pay after taxes. For example, you're at work. They take out taxes, they take out insurance, they take out retirement. Once they take all those things out of your check, the actual what you actually bring home is your base income, or it's your disposable income, right? Discretionary income is different because discretionary income is basically money left over after you pay all of your bills. So a very simple way of looking at it is this: disposable income is living expenses, right? Discretionary income is after you paid all your bills, after you dealt with all your living expenses, what's left over is discretionary income. And so a lot of times right now, what happens is we're spending a lot more money on discretionary items, and we're struggling to pay and take care of living expenses. And so we'll get there, right? So again, when you're looking at a budget, right, there's two categories when you're looking at a budget, right? When you're looking at your budget, it's essential income and non-essential. It's essential things and non-essential. So let's get into the essentials, things that are necessary, things that you need to have in your budget. And the first area is housing. So when you're looking at your budget, you looked at all the where you spent all your money, you kept your receipts and everything like that. So one place that you have to have, and this is essential, you got to have a place to live, right? So your housing. Housing is about 25 to 35% of your budget. Some may have it a little higher, but it's about 25 to 35% of your budget. And housing is anything that you pay to keep a roof over your head, right? That's your rent or your mortgage, it's property taxes, it's homeowners association dues, it's home maintenance costs. So you in your housing, not only you're paying your rent and your mortgage, right? You should also be putting a little money aside for what? For maintenance. You got to have money because if something breaks, you got to have the money to what? To fix it, right? So again, you got to have money aside. So you have to be putting money aside. I can remember our AC broke. And they don't make products the way they do, back in the way they did back in the day, And so our AC, it lasted a good while, thank God. But our AC broke, and now we have an additional expense that on the outside, it was unexpected because we wasn't looking for it. But you have to have it in your budget, planning for it, because AC units are not cheap; they're very expensive. So you got to have money put aside for that, right? And for most people, when you're looking at your housing, this is going to be the biggest part of your budget. This is going to be the biggest part of your budget. One thing I will say too is this, sometimes we spend a little bit too much on our housing, but it's hard to say because it also depends on what area you want to live in. One area may make you feel more safe than the other. So, if you're spending 35% of your budget, which is the max amount of housing, and that's going towards your rent or your mortgage, because that what makes you feel safe, then you have to be able to adjust in other areas. And we'll talk about that. But I do understand sometimes you may spend a little bit more for housing based off of the area that you live in. Some areas housing is just expensive. So that area is going to go up, right? There's a question that says, how much should you put aside for maintenance? When you're putting aside for maintenance, you want to put aside 5 to 10%, 5 to 10% of that budget. You want to put aside 5 to 10% of that housing. You want to put that aside for maintenance. For example, if your mortgage is let's say $1,000 a month, right? If your mortgage or your rent is $1,000 a month, then you wouldn't want to be putting aside $1,000 for maintenance. You're going to be putting aside $50 to $100 a month, towards that. Now it's a little different too, because if you're renting, certain things the homeowner should take care of. And so that's a different thing because we're talking about a business budget as well, but we'll deal with businesses later and talk about how to do a business budget later. But right now we're dealing with personal. So housing is the first thing. It's the largest part that goes in your budget, and it's usually 25 to 35%. So what you do is you take how much your disposable income, how much you bring home, you look at how much you pay for your rent or for your mortgage, right? And you divide your rent or your mortgage by how much you bring home. So very easy to say, if your bring home pay for the month is $1,000 a month, then your mortgage, your housing, and everything can't be more than $350, right? But you're like, well, dog, what are you going to get for $350? That's a good question. So you may have to go more on your housing, but as we start going through these other areas, then there's some other areas you're going to have to do what? Cut out. Does that make sense? Another area is transportation. That's very important as well. So basically, when you look at your transportation, you got to say everybody needs a way to get from point A to point B, right? And so you got car payment, you got car insurance, you got registration, gas, maintenance, all that's a part of your transportation budget, right? And transportation budget is 10 to 15%, of your monthly income. Again, so that's kind of how we do it. So again, 10 to 15% of your monthly income. So if your monthly income is $1,000, then what you have for transportation is $100, and so that means I don't know if you could get a car for $100 a month. So then that goes right to this question: what if you should use public transportation? And that's what I was going to say. You may have to use public transportation, and in there you still budget because whatever the cost for the bus pass, or if you're living where there's a train, whatever, how much does it cost to catch the train or the bus or, public transportation. You go ahead and pay for that, for the month, and that fits into your budget, So again, parking, tolls, all those things become a part of your monthly transportation budget, and you have to put that in. And so when you look at it, again, your transportation budget should be 10 to 15% of your monthly income. And so what I want you to do as we're going through this, when you get finished, I want you to take all your bills, right? Look at your monthly income and put everything into the appropriate category and look to see, are we on budget or are we over budget, or are we below budget in those areas, right? And I think that would help us out. So transportation. So housing is 25 to 35%. Transportation is 10 to 15%. And that's everything dealing with transportation, car payments, insurance, all those different things. If you're using public transportation, how much does it cost to do that on a regular basis? If you're saying, well, I'm using an Uber or Lyft or whatever, then understanding, or a cab, you got to understand, well, how much does that cost? How does that fit my budget? I may have to do something different. Okay. You may have to do something different. Another area is groceries. And again, I'm giving you some broad areas, for your budget. Housing, what to put under housing. Transportation, what to put under transportation. You got food or groceries, and we'll say groceries. And again, food and groceries, that includes, going to the grocery store. Normally, I would say it like this, just to make it easy. Anything you go to the grocery store and you get, that's a part of your groceries, right? So with that being said, that's not only food, but that might be cleaning products. You follow what I'm saying? So that might be like, you got to have laundry detergent because you got to wash your clothes, right? You need dish detergent, you got to wash dishes. So all that will fall under that umbrella of groceries, and we'll just put food or groceries, and all that will fall under that particular area. But another area would go here is dining out. Now, dining out can go here, or you can put dining out in the non-essential area. But let's just put it here under food because we need to eat something, right? But again, you got to understand: are you dining out, and is that blowing your budget? So when you look at your average expenses for groceries for the month, right? And you divide that by how much you bring in. So again, your groceries, your food and groceries should be 10 to 15%. So if I'm making $1,000 a month, then my food or groceries should be roughly $150. And that's for, food, that's for detergent, that's for everything that I'm supposed to have. That's $150 because that's the max of that 15%, of that budget. That's the max amount. And so we'll put all that into that area and understand that we got to stay within that range. And again, if I go high in that area, I got to find another area where I can bring the cost down. And one of the things we understand that in order to eat healthy, it costs more. You know what I'm saying? You can go and get a regular loaf of white bread or whatever, get some Wonder Bread or something like that. And you might spend about $2 or somewhere around in there, right? But if you go and get that green wise bread or some of that organic bread or something like that, then guess what? You might be paying $5 for a loaf. So it's a lot more expensive. You go, think about it. You go to the meat department, you say, okay, I want to get some meat. Do you get ground round or ground chuck? You know what I mean? One of them is a lot more, we got a lot of white in it or a lot of fat in it. So you get a pound of it, you cook it down, and you realize, hey, I don't have as much left, or you get that leaner cut of meat so that it doesn't make as much oil because it doesn't have as much fat. And when you cook it, it doesn't cook down as much, but that is a lot more expensive. So we understand it becomes expensive to eat healthy, but we do need to try to eat healthy. So we have to find ways to do that. But again, we have to try to ways to eat healthy, but stay within our budget. Okay. Another area in your budget is utilities. So remember, we got housing, transportation, groceries, and now we're looking at utilities, right? And utilities are 5 to 10% of your budget, 5 to 10% of your budget. And again, your utilities are water, electricity, gas, heating and AC, heating and cooling, sewage bills. And so all those things are part of your utilities. Now, another thing that goes here in utilities is also your cell phone. Again, some people might put it in another area, try to give it its own category, but you only got 100%, right? And if your housing is 25 to 30%, transportation is 10 to 15%, groceries is 10 to 15%, utilities is 5 to 10%. You cannot create another category and say, okay, this is my phone bill, and that's going to be 5 to 10% as well. You know what I'm saying? So you have to have a place to put it. So most times we put the phone bill under utilities, or you can take the phone bill and put it under housing. Okay. Or you can take the phone bill and put it under housing. So like for me, in my budget, I took my phone bill and cable bill and I put that under housing for me in my budget. But again, a lot of people take your phone bill, your cable bill, and they put that under utilities, right? So, and I thought about this because, how bad do you need a phone? Because when we talked about essentials, saying these things that are necessary, and then we got a category that we'll talk about that's non-essential. Is that phone essential? And many people would say, yeah, that phone is essential. I got to have my phone. But the question is, do you have to have the top of the line phone? What are you really using the phone for? So we're using the phone because we've gotten so addicted to media that's not necessarily social, even though we call it social media. And we've gotten addicted to it, and people are on their phones all the time, scrolling. And they're paying for a phone that they don't really need. or they're paying for a phone, but they don't need that type of phone. I can see if you got a special or something like that. But at the end of the day, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And even though they're telling you it's free, more than likely, guess what? It's not free. They're finding a way to charge you for something, right? But you got to ask yourself, do I really need the phone with all the bells and whistles? Because I'm trying to live not just for today, I'm trying to live for tomorrow. I'm trying to stay within my budget. You follow what I'm saying? So your phone bill goes here. Cable. Do you really need cable? And listen, think about this. The truth be told, you can go spend about what, $30, $35 for an HD antenna, connect that to the back of your TV, and you can get all of your local channels, and they come in crystal clear, right? And you pay $30, $35 one time, and you get all your local channels. But you're not getting HBO and Cinemax and Stars and ESPN. You're not getting any of those. But the question is, how bad do you need that? Are those things really essential? And so when you're trying to figure out how can I cut back, you have to find an area. I mean, think about this. How many of you are paying almost $200 for cable, and then you sit down and watch TV and you get mad because you're paying all this money for cable and you can't find anything that you really want to watch at this time. You'll say, "Oh, there's nothing on TV," right? But you're paying all this money for cable. So you have to think about, do I really need cable? Do I really need this level of cable, or can I get away with an HD antenna and then pay maybe $30 for a streaming service, right? Where I can stream something for $30 a month, and I don't have to worry about, all this extra money that I'm paying for cable. You have your internet that goes under utilities. So you understand that there's certain things that I need, but then there's some things that, I don't need this, so I don't have to spend as much money on that. And then I don't need the top of the line. But most times if you get a phone, every time they come out with a new phone, there's some people who they're getting rid of the old phone just to get a new phone. Just to get a new phone because it has all these bells and whistles. But remember, you're trying to live off a budget, and you keep blowing your budget because you're getting a new phone, and now you're paying $30 and $45 a month for a new phone, and they got you locked in for 2 years. So just think about that. Utilities. I'm almost out of time, but I want to make sure I get to this area here. Insurance, 10 to 25%. Let me tell you something, right? One of the ways that we can create generational wealth is with life insurance. Not just barely insurance, not just enough to bury a family member, but something to leave behind. For example, if you leave a family member some land, right? Well, when you leave them land, they still got to pay property taxes. So if they didn't have any money before you pass, they're not going to have any money after you pass, right? So they're going to be stuck with either one, selling the property, or two, they're going to lose the property because they can't pay the property taxes. So now, if you have life insurance, this is essential. This is not negotiable. This is not non-essential. Life insurance is essential, right? Now you can have enough to where, you can leave them enough money that one they can survive, they can live off of. And if nothing else, hey, use that money on an annual basis just to make sure the property taxes stay up to date, stay paid, so that no one can take your property away. Because again, a lot of times we leave a property or we leave someone something, and they don't have the money to keep up with it or to pay the taxes. I watch, sometimes I'll look at shows and people will win cars and things like that, right? and they win cars on the game show, not realizing that you got to pay taxes on that car. You win a trip, and you win this. Remember, like the Price is Right, and at the end of your prize set comes up to $30,000, right? And you got a trip around the world, and you got a new car, and you got all this stuff. And just remember, on that $30,000, guess what? You got to pay taxes on that. So sometimes people get so excited because they won the prize, not thinking about, guess what? I have to pay taxes on that prize I just won. It might just be better for me. You know what? Instead of keeping the car, hey, let's sell it. Let's sell the car. I can pay the taxes and I'll have money left over. Let's sell the trip. I can pay the taxes and I have money left over. So you got to think about those things like that. So life insurance is essential. If you don't have life insurance, one of the first things that I want you to do, especially if you have anyone that you love and that you care about, guess what? Go get some life insurance. Don't tell them how much. Don't tell them how much, but get some life insurance and make sure you can leave your loved ones something. Another type of insurance that goes here is disability insurance, health, homeowners or rental insurance. Now, again, we're going to talk about medical and healthcare, but here you got health insurance. Now, so health insurance and medical and healthcare is going to be a little different, but in insurance area, we're putting 10 to 25% in this insurance area. And you got all your insurances that you hear. Now, again, car insurance, just real quick, car insurance, it can go here or you can put it with transportation. I put car insurance with transportation because to me, it just all goes together. Medical and healthcare. Medical and healthcare is 5 to 10%. This is different from having health insurance. This is what you have to pay, like co-pays, right? So like every time you go to a doctor, you have a copay. That's money that you got to have. So you need to have in your budget money for the copay. Some of us, you get your insurance. You get your prescription filled. The insurance pays half or a certain amount, and you have to have what? Pay your copay. And that copay could be $5, it can be $7, it could be $40. If you go to a specialist, right? You got to pay the copay there. So when we talk about medical and healthcare, this is not your insurance. These are the copays and the things that you have to pay out of pocket. These are out of pocket costs that your health insurance does not cover, right? So dental and all of those different things that your insurance doesn't cover, you still need to have a part of your budget for that, and that area is 5 to 10%. One more area in your necessary or essential area is savings, investing, and debt payment. That's another area that will go in there. Now, I want to talk about savings and investing, but real quick, this debt payment is not for you to pay your credit card bills and things like that, right? This debt payment is the extra. So let's say, for example, if your monthly payment on a credit card or a car or whatever it is say $500 a month, but you say, I want to put extra. That comes from that debt payment area. So I can put $5 extra, $10 extra, $100 extra a month, but that's where that's coming from. So when I'm saying debt payments, that's not to pay your bill, that's to pay extra on the bill, because that bill payment should be coming from another area out of your budget. I'm taking money out of my savings, investings, and debt payments to put extra on that bill. Now, and we should put at least 10 to 20% of our income in savings, investings, and in debt payment area. We should put 10 to 20% there. One thing I would tell you is, if nothing else, pay yourself first. Before you pay any bill, pay yourself first, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to, you have to be able to live not just for the day, but for tomorrow. All right. There's a question that says, how do you prioritize essentials? Well, the truth be told, with essentials, all of them are necessary in that. So it's really not about prioritizing, more so than it's looking to see how much I'm paying and am I outside of the set range for this budget, and what do I need to do to get it back in the appropriate range, right? So think about this. If I make $1,000 a month, all I have is $1,000 a month. That's it. So if that's what I'm bringing home, then if I'm putting 25 or 35% in housing, that's $350. I have to make sure everything lines up so that at the end of the day, it equals 100%, 100% or $1,000. If it's more than that, then I'm outside my budget, right? If it's less than that, that's great, because that means now I can take the extra and put it in my savings, investings, or in debt payment area, or I can now start using that as discretionary funds, right? Which means I can do some non-essential things with that. So when I'm looking at my budget, I'm not necessarily prioritizing, because I'm saying all these things are essential, right? It's really, am I within my budget? And if I'm out of my budget, how do I rearrange things so that I can get it back in the budget range? How can I get it back in the budget range? So with that being said, we're going to stop here with this, and we'll pick up with some of the non-essentials on our next month. We'll pick up with the non-essentials. But one of the things I would like for you to do is to organize your bills into essential and non-essential categories. So what we'll find is we've gone through the essentials: housing, transportation, groceries, utilities, insurance, medical and healthcare, and savings and investment. We've gone through those areas. So once you put everything in those areas, everything else you will be able to realize is what? Non-essential, right? You got your personal spending and things like that. That's in your non-essential category. So that's what we would like for you to do. Go back. We've set up and we've looked at our spending. We're going to look at it again. And now we're going to put everything into its appropriate category. And we're going to see where we're over budget or under budget in those particular areas. Okay. And I hope that as you start doing it, you can start getting a better control of your finances. Because I promise you, once you see where everything is going, you better have a better idea of what you need to do to fix it. When I was going through financially, once I started putting my things and writing it out on paper and putting it out, I was able to see. And again, once I was able to see it, I was able to understand it. I was able to control it. And once I was able to get control of it, I was able to change it. Right. And I truly believe that once you get to that place, you'll be able to change where you are as well, and be able to start stacking some more papers and being able to have some fun, not just for today, but for tomorrow. Right. Because it's not just about today. It's for tomorrow. It's not just for us. It's for our children and our children's children. Thank you so much. I pray that it's been a blessing to you. Until next time, we'll see you.